The sun was just beginning to dip behind the hills as billionaire Alexander Graves, known for his ruthless business acumen, leaned against the window of his private train car. He was en route to a corporate gala, far from the chaos of his usual world. But his thoughts were distant, wandering to a place even his wealth couldn't touch. Peace. Suddenly, the calm was shattered by the deafening shriek of metal. The train lurched violently. Passengers screamed. Alexander was thrown off balance, smashing into the elegant wood-paneled wall. As he struggled to his feet, he caught sight of something horrifying from the window. The front cars were speeding, out of control, and then he saw them. Two small figures, twins, standing frozen on the tracks ahead, a boy and a girl no older than 6. The train was seconds away from impact. Without thinking, Alexander bolted. His billion-dollar world meant nothing now. Only one thing mattered: reaching those children in time. Alexander burst through the emergency door at the rear of his car. Wind whipped violently against his face, tearing at his tailored suit. The train roared beneath him like a metal beast, gaining speed with every passing second. The twins were still there, frozen in fear, too far for a normal man to reach in time, but Alexander wasn't thinking rationally. With a deep breath, he climbed out onto the coupling between the cars, gripping a rail with white-knuckled hands. The vibrations shook his entire body. One slip, and he'd vanish beneath the thundering wheels. He leapt, landing hard on the gravel beside the tracks. His knees buckled, but adrenaline pushed him on. Pain shot up his leg as he sprinted toward the children. The screech of the runaway train echoed behind him. Every second felt like a lifetime. "Move!" he shouted, but the twins didn't respond. They were too terrified to react. There was no time for fear. Alexander dove, arms outstretched, and tackled both children, rolling them off the tracks just as the train screamed past in a blur of fire and steel. Silence, and then 2 cries. The twins were alive, so was he, but nothing would ever be the same again. Alexander lay on the rocky ground, panting. His heart hammered in his chest like it was trying to break free. Gravel was embedded in his palms, and his shoulder burned from the impact, but none of it mattered. The twins were safe. He looked over at them, 2 tiny, trembling bodies clinging to each other. The girl had wild, curly hair, dirt smudging her cheeks. The boy's lip was bleeding, but his arms protectively wrapped around his sister. Their eyes were wide with terror and confusion as they looked up at him. Alexander sat up slowly and spoke gently. "Are you hurt?" The girl shook her head. The boy hesitated, then muttered, "No." "What were you doing on the tracks?" Alexander asked. The boy pointed down the hill. "We live down there. We were crossing. We didn't hear the train until it was too close." Alexander followed the direction of his finger. A crumbling shack barely stood among the brush, hidden from view by tall weeds and trees. No adults, no lights, just abandonment. His chest tightened. He turned back to them. "What are your names?" "I'm Lily," the girl whispered. "I'm Leo," the boy added, his voice thin but brave. "I'm Alexander," he said. "You're safe now, I promise." Alexander stood slowly, wincing from the pain in his shoulder, and looked toward the shack. He glanced down at Lily and Leo, barefoot, underfed, and clearly used to surviving on their own. His mind raced. "Is there anyone with you?" he asked. Leo looked down. "No, Mommy went to find food yesterday. She didn't come back." Alexander felt something twist in his gut. "How long have you been alone?" "Since yesterday morning," Leo whispered. Lily clung tighter to her brother. Her eyes had the kind of fear no child should ever carry. Without another word, Alexander offered his hand. "Let's go. I want to see where you live." The children hesitated, years of mistrust in a single glance. But then Leo nodded. Hand in hand, they made their way up the hillside path, thorns scraping at their legs, branches snagging their clothes. The shack was worse than it looked from afar. holes in the roof, rusted tin for walls. Inside, a mattress on the floor, a few broken dishes, and a tattered backpack with a piece of bread so stale it crumbled at Alexander's touch. It wasn't a home. It was a cry for help. Alexander stood in the center of the room, stunned by the poverty. He had built skyscrapers, led boardrooms, and owned islands. But none of that compared to the weight of this moment. "I'm taking you with me," he said softly. Lily and Leo watched Alexander with guarded eyes as he examined the shack. It was more than a shelter. It was a prison of poverty. Alexander knelt beside them, lowering his voice. "Has anyone else come by? A neighbor? Police?" Leo shook his head. "No one ever comes. We don't have neighbors, just the woods." Alexander looked around again, noticing scraps of newspaper lining the walls for insulation. A plastic bowl filled with rainwater sat in the corner. The children had been surviving off next to nothing. "Your mother," he asked carefully, "has she ever left you alone before?" Lily's voice was barely a whisper. "Sometimes, but not for this long." Alexander's throat tightened. This wasn't just a one-time emergency. This was a life they'd been forced to live. "I'm going to help you," he said firmly. Leo narrowed his eyes. "Why?" Alexander paused. No one had asked him that in a long time. Why? Because he'd spent a lifetime gathering wealth and status. And now, for the first time, he saw where it could truly matter. "Because someone should have helped you a long time ago," he replied. He pulled out his phone, but there was no signal. Of course, too remote. "Come on," he said. "We're getting out of here." And as they stepped outside, Alexander realized he wasn't just rescuing them, he was saving himself too. The path down the hill was uneven and overgrown. Thorns tore at Alexander's slacks and mud clung to his polished shoes. He hardly noticed. One hand clutched his aching shoulder, the other guided Leo and Lily carefully through the brush. They walked in silence at first. The children still didn't fully trust him, but they followed. That was enough for now. By the time they reached the tracks again, the sun had slipped completely behind the hills. Crickets chirped in the shadows. The air smelled of rust, earth, and smoke from the train's screeching emergency halt miles down the line. Alexander helped the twins step over the rails, then guided them toward a clearing where his overturned briefcase lay forgotten. Papers fluttered in the wind. Among them, contracts worth millions. He left them there. The twins began to shiver in the evening chill. Without hesitation, Alexander removed his expensive suit jacket and wrapped it around Lily. Then he lifted her into his arms. "I'll carry her," he said to Leo, who looked both relieved and proud. "But you're the guide. Lead us back toward the road." Leo nodded. His small face was serious. "I remember the way." And so, with one twin in his arms and the other leading the way, the billionaire who had once ruled boardrooms now trudged, barefoot through the dirt, guided by a child's memory and the weight of something far more important than fortune. They had been walking for nearly half an hour. The forest thinned out slowly, giving way to wild grass and broken fence posts. Alexander's arms ached from carrying Lily, but she had finally fallen asleep against his shoulder, her tiny breath warming his neck. Leo walked beside him silently, determined and watchful. Then, light, faint, flickering beams cut through the trees ahead. A road. Alexander's heart leapt. "We're almost there," he whispered. As they reached the edge of the brush, a pair of headlights appeared in the distance. The rumble of an approaching vehicle stirred the night. Alexander stepped to the open and waved one hand high. The car, a pickup truck, slowed as it neared them, tires crunching on gravel. It stopped a few feet away. A middle-aged man with graying hair leaned out the window, squinting. "Everything all right?" the driver asked cautiously. Alexander took a breath. "These children need help. Can you take us to the nearest town?" The man stared, taking in the sight. A bruised billionaire carrying a sleeping girl, and a barefoot boy clinging to his hand. "Hop in," he said without hesitation. The passenger door creaked open. Alexander gently placed Lily inside, then helped Leo climb up. As he slid in beside them, he looked back once, at the dark woods and the tracks disappearing into shadow. Then the truck drove off, carrying them toward something neither the billionaire nor the twins expected: a second chance. The truck rumbled. Along the winding road, the twins nestled safely inside. Lily's soft breathing was the only sound beside the steady hum of the engine. Alexander sat quietly, watching Leo's small hand clutch his own, a fragile link to a past he barely understood. The driver, a man named Tom, glanced at Alexander in the rearview mirror. "You're lucky to find him in time," he said quietly. "Trains don't stop for kids on the tracks." Alexander nodded, his mind still racing. "They shouldn't have been there. Nobody should live like that." Tom gave a tired smile. "Around here, some folks get forgotten." Minutes later, the truck pulled up to a small town's outskirts. A modest motel sign flickered weakly in the night. Alexander knew he could afford the finest hotels in the world, but this place was real, and tonight, it was safe. They checked, and quietly, Alexander rented 2 rooms, one for the twins, one for himself. He stayed close, unwilling to let go of the fragile trust forming between them. As Lily and Leo drifted to sleep on the thin motel beds, Alexander stared out the window, into the darkened street, silently promising himself he would do everything in his power to change their fate. The morning light crept through thin curtains, casting pale stripes across the motel room. Lily and Leo stirred awake, rubbing their eyes and clinging to each other. Alexander sat nearby, quietly watching over them. The twins were hesitant, shy. In this strange new world, Alexander tried to ease their fears by sharing stories, not about business or money, but about kindness and hope. Slowly, they began to open up. "Why did you help us?" Lily asked softly. Alexander smiled, the first genuine one in days. "Because sometimes even the richest hearts are empty until they learn to care." But just as the fragile peace settled, Alexander's phone buzzed relentlessly. His assistant's voice crackled through, delivering news that would shake everything. The runaway train accident had triggered a major investigation, and the children's disappearance was now a public mystery. Alexander realized the rescue was only the beginning. To protect Lily and Leo, he would have to face forces far more dangerous than poverty. Alexander sat at the small motel desk, phone pressed to his ear, negotiating quietly with his assistant. The news had spread faster than he imagined. Reporters were already swarming the train station, looking for witnesses. And worst of all, Child Protective Services were preparing to intervene. He knew that in his world, kindness often came with a price. But this time, he was ready. "I'll handle it," Alexander said firmly. "No one's taking these kids away. Not while I'm here." The twins peeked in, eyes wide. Alexander smiled gently. "You're safe." As he ended the call, Alexander realized that saving Lily and Leo meant more than just rescuing them from danger. It meant fighting the battles his fortune had never prepared him for, and he was ready to risk everything. The following day, Alexander took the twins to a nearby cafe, a place bustling with warmth and life, so different from their lonely shack. They sat together, sipping hot chocolate and sharing stories. He pulled out a legal document, carefully explaining to Lily and Leo, "I want to become your guardian. That means you won't have to worry about being alone anymore." Leo looked unsure. "Will we have to leave each other?" Alexander shook his head. "Never. I promise you'll always stay together." The children smiled, a fragile hope beginning to bloom. But as Alexander signed the papers, a shadow loomed. The local authorities were watching closely, and not everyone wanted a billionaire involved in such a messy personal affair. Yet Alexander was determined. For these children, he would fight every battle. News of the billionaire's sudden involvement spread like wildfire through the small town. Some whispered admiration, others suspicion. Alexander felt the weight of countless eyes, judging, questioning, doubting. At the local diner, patrons glanced sideways as he entered with Lily and Leo. Whispers followed. "Who is this man?" Why these children? The twins clung to Alexander's hands tightly, sensing the tension. Later, a stern woman in a sharp suit approached Alexander, introducing herself as a social worker. Her expression was firm but not unkind. "I need to ask some questions," she said. Alexander nodded, steeling himself. As the questions began, Alexander realized this was more than a legal battle. It was a test of his heart, his resolve, and his commitment to the twins. Days passed with endless questioning and scrutiny. Alexander felt the pressure mounting, not just from officials but from the town's murmurs. One afternoon, a gentle knock sounded at his motel door. Standing there was an elderly woman with kind eyes and a weathered smile. "I'm Martha," she said softly. "I live near the woods where your twins were found." Alexander invited her in, sensing a glimmer of hope. Martha shared stories of the children's mother, a woman who had struggled but loved fiercely, and how the neighbors had been too afraid or too busy to help. "I want to help you," Martha said. "You're the first person who truly cares." For the first time, Alexander felt a genuine partnership forming, one that might finally give the twins a real chance at life. With Martha's support, Alexander began piecing together the twins' history. He learned that their mother, once full of hope, had fallen into hardship after losing her job and facing illness. One evening, Alexander sat with Lily and Leo, gently asking about their memories. The twins hesitated but slowly shared glimpses of their life before the shack, happy moments shadowed by growing fear. Alexander's heart ached for what they'd lost, but he also saw their resilience. "I'm here now," he said firmly. "And I'm not going anywhere." The past was painful, but the future was still unwritten. Days turned into weeks. With Alexander's care and Martha's guidance, Lily and Leo began to heal. Not just their wounds, but their broken trust. They enrolled in school, met new friends, and started to laugh again. Alexander watched them rediscover the simple joys he had long forgotten amid his endless business deals. One afternoon, Lily showed Alexander a drawing she made, a family holding hands beneath a golden sun. "It's us," she said shyly. Alexander smiled, feeling a warmth he hadn't known in years. For the first time, he understood that true wealth wasn't money. It was love and hope. Just as life seemed to settle, a dark shadow crept in. Alexander received an unexpected call late one night. A lawyer representing the twins' estranged uncle, a man with a history of greed and questionable motives. The uncle was claiming custody, threatening legal battles that could tear the fragile family apart. Alexander's jaw tightened. He knew this fight would be tougher than any business deal, but he refused to back down. "They won't take you away," he whispered to the twins that night, holding them close. This was his promise, and he meant to keep it. The courtroom was cold and intimidating. Alexander sat at the defendant's table, papers spread before him, while across the room sat the twins' uncle, sharp-eyed and ruthless. The judge called the hearing to order. Arguments flew back and forth. The uncle painted a bleak picture of neglect, while Alexander presented evidence of the children's current well-being and the loving home he was building. Outside the courtroom, reporters snapped photos, their flashes reflecting the growing media storm. Alexander knew this was more than a fight for custody. It was a battle for the twins' future. The courtroom felt like a battlefield, every word slicing through the heavy silence. The uncle's lawyer was relentless, accusing Alexander of using the twins as a publicity stunt, painting him as a detached millionaire who couldn't truly understand their pain. But Alexander stood firm. He shared stories of the nights he'd stayed awake, comforting Lily's nightmares and Leo's whispered fears, revealing a side of himself no one expected, the vulnerable protector. Suddenly, a surprise witness stepped forward. Martha, the elderly neighbor whose heartfelt testimony about the twins' mother and the community's neglect shook the courtroom. Her voice trembled as she pleaded for the children's chance at a real family. The judge's eyes softened, but the tension remained thick. This was not just a custody hearing, it was a fight for the twins' very souls. Alexander looked at Lily and Leo, their small hands gripping his tightly. No matter what happened next, he vowed to never let go. The courtroom fell silent as Martha's testimony settled in the air. The uncle's smug confidence faltered, replaced by a flicker of unease. Alexander seized the moment, his voice steady but fierce. "These children have already lost so much," he said, eyes locked on the judge. "They deserve a life filled with love, not greed disguised as family." The twins watched wide-eyed as Alexander revealed photos, simple moments captured during their weeks together, laughing in a park, studying at the kitchen table, sleeping peacefully. Behind the stoic exterior, a fire burned. He wasn't just fighting for custody, he was fighting for their future, their hope. As the judge prepared to speak, the courtroom held its breath. The battle was far from over, but for the first time, the truth was no longer hidden. The judge leaned forward, fingers steepled, eyes scanning the courtroom. A silence filled the room, broken only by the steady breathing of those waiting for a decision that could change lives forever. "This court recognizes the undeniable bond between Mr. Alexander and the twins," the judge began, voice calm but firm. "While family ties are important, the paramount consideration is the children's welfare." Turning to the uncle, the judge's gaze was unwavering. "Custody is awarded to Mr. Alexander, who has demonstrated unwavering commitment and love." Collective breath was released. Tears welled in Lily's eyes as she squeezed Alexander's hand. Leo smiled, relief breaking across his face. Outside the courthouse, cameras flashed, but Alexander barely noticed. For him, the victory wasn't about headlines. It was about two children finally having a home. With the court's decision, Alexander finally took the twins to a new home. Not a mansion, but a warm, inviting house with a garden blooming with flowers. It was a place where laughter could grow again. Lily ran to the backyard, her smile bright like the sun. Leo chased after her, their joyful shouts echoing through the air. Alexander stood on the porch, watching them play, his heart swelling with a love he had never known. That night, as the children slept peacefully, Alexander sat by the window, contemplating the long road ahead. The past shadows still lingered, but for the first time, hope was stronger than fear. He whispered a promise into the quiet night. "I'll protect you, no matter what." Life in the new home was filled with small joys, school days, bedtime stories, and the simple comfort of routine. Yet Alexander knew that healing wasn't instant. The twins still flinched at loud noises and sometimes retreated into silence, determined. To help, Alexander arranged for a child therapist to visit regularly. Lily and Leo were hesitant at first, but slowly, the walls around their hearts began to crack. Alexander learned to be patient, understanding that love was not just about protection, but about giving space to grow. In the evenings, they gathered around the fireplace, sharing stories and building trust one moment at a time. The path ahead was long, but together, they were stronger. One bright morning, Alexander took Lily and Leo to a nearby park. The children's laughter echoed freely as they ran beneath the blossoming trees, their smiles unguarded and full of life. As they explored, Leo stumbled upon a small, abandoned puppy hiding under a bush. His eyes lit up with excitement. "Can we keep him?" Leo asked, hopeful. Alexander looked at Lily, who nodded eagerly, then back at the trembling puppy. "Looks like we're a family of 4 now," he said with a soft smile. The puppy became a new source of comfort and joy, helping the twins open their hearts further. For the first time since the runaway train, happiness felt real. And within each, just as happiness seemed within reach, dark clouds gathered again. One evening, Alexander received a mysterious message. The twins' uncle wasn't finished. He had hired private investigators to dig up dirt on Alexander, hoping to find anything to discredit him. The following day, whispers of scandal began circulating. Rumors that the billionaire had ulterior motives, that the children were pawns. In a larger game, Lily and Leo sensed the tension rising around them, their smiles fading once more. Alexander clenched his fists, anger and determination burning in his eyes. He would fight this shadow with everything he had, because losing them was not an option. The next morning, Alexander faced a barrage of phone calls and media inquiries. Tabloids splashed headlines questioning his motives, twisting his acts of kindness into schemes. Determined to protect Lily and Leo, he called an emergency meeting with his legal team and PR advisors. "This ends now," Alexander declared. "We expose the truth, no more hiding." Meanwhile, Lily clung to him tightly, whispering, "Will they take us away?" "No," Alexander promised fiercely. "I'm your shield." As the media storm swirled, Alexander prepared for the fiercest fight of his life, not just in court, but for the twins' innocence and their future. Alexander's team worked tirelessly, gathering evidence to dismantle the web of lies spun by the twins' uncle. Private investigators uncovered proof of the uncle's shady dealings, manipulation, and history of abandonment. At a press conference, Alexander stood before the flashing cameras and spoke with unwavering honesty. "I didn't choose this path for fame or fortune," he declared. "I chose it because these children deserve love, safety, and a chance to heal." The public's mood shifted. Support poured in from strangers moved by the billionaire's genuine care and courage. Back home, Lily and Leo felt the tension ease, their smiles slowly returning as hope rekindled. Alexander knew the fight wasn't over, but the light was breaking through the darkness. The backlash against the uncle grew stronger, and the courtroom battle tipped in Alexander's favor. But beneath the surface, the twins still battled fears and nightmares. One night, Lily woke in tears, haunted by memories of the runaway train. Alexander held her close, whispering soothing words as Leo watched silently from the doorway. The scars of their past weren't just physical, they ran deep in their hearts. Determined, Alexander vowed to do more than protect them physically. He would help heal the invisible wounds. With therapy sessions increasing and his presence unwavering, a fragile peace began to settle. A peace built on trust, patience, and relentless love. Days turned into weeks, and slowly, the twins began to open up more. Lily drew pictures of sunny skies and happy families, and Leo started speaking about his dreams for the future. Alexander noticed the subtle changes, the way Leo laughed during dinner, how Lily asked questions about the stars at bedtime. One afternoon, they visited the zoo, where the twins' eyes sparkled with wonder at the animals and the colorful world around them. For Alexander, these small moments were victories, proof that healing was possible. Though the journey was far from over, hope was becoming a steady companion. Just as life began to feel stable, a chilling message arrived, an anonymous warning that the twins' uncle was not finished. He had plans to kidnap Lily and Leo, to take them away by force if necessary. Alexander's heart pounded with fear, but he refused to show weakness. He immediately strengthened security around their home and contacted trusted allies. The twins sensed the sudden tension. Alexander reassured them, "No one will hurt you, not while I'm here." The fight to protect the family was far from over, and the stakes had never been higher. The night was still, but Alexander's instincts screamed alert. Security systems had detected suspicious movement near the property. Suddenly, the gate rattled violently. Shadowy figures trying to break in. Alexander sprang into action, coordinating with his security team and rushing to the twins' rooms to ensure their safety. Lily and Leo huddled together, eyes wide with fear, but Alexander's calm presence steadied them. After a tense standoff, the intruders fled, foiled but not defeated. Alexander knew this was just the beginning of a dangerous game, but he was ready to face whatever came next. The attempted break-in had shaken them all, but Alexander's resolve only grew stronger. He hired the best security experts, installed state-of-the-art protection, and personally trained to face any threat head-on. During the days that followed, Alexander spent every moment with Lily and Leo, reassuring them they were safe and loved beyond measure. Late one night, as the twins slept peacefully, Alexander sat alone in his study, eyes burning with determination. No matter what darkness comes, I will be their light, he whispered. The battle for their future was far from over, but with a heart of gold and iron will, Alexander was ready to face it all. Days passed, and the twins began to feel safer within their walls. Therapy sessions grew deeper, and Lily and Leo started opening up about their fears and dreams. One afternoon, Alexander surprised them with a trip to the beach, an escape to the calming waves and endless horizon. Lily built sandcastles while Leo chased seagulls, their laughter ringing like music. Alexander watched them, heart full but mindful of the shadows still lurking. He knew healing was a journey, but with each smile, the twins' hearts grew stronger, and so did his hope for a brighter future. Just as the twins began to heal, Alexander received an urgent call. The uncle had made one last, desperate move. He planned to confront Alexander face to face, demanding the twins be returned or threatening to expose fabricated secrets that could ruin Alexander's reputation forever. The tension in the air was thick as Alexander prepared for the confrontation. He couldn't let fear control him. Determined to protect the twins at all costs, Alexander readied himself for the battle ahead. Not with fists, but with truth, courage, and unwavering love. The fight for their future was about to reach its most dangerous point yet. The day of reckoning arrived. Alexander met the uncle in a quiet private room, far from the public eye, yet heavy with tension. The uncle's eyes were cold, filled with greed and bitterness. "Give me the children," he demanded, voice low but menacing. "They belong with me." Alexander stood firm, his voice steady but resolute. "They belong with those who truly love and protect them." Words turned to threats. The uncle revealed a few half-truths, trying to sow doubt, but Alexander countered with undeniable evidence of the uncle's neglect and malice. Neither willing to back down, the air crackled with intensity. But Alexander's calm strength and unyielding love formed an invisible shield around the twins' future. The battle was far from over, but Alexander had won a crucial moment. After the confrontation, Alexander returned home determined to create a fortress of love and security for Lily and Leo. He spent long evenings by their side, sharing stories of hope and courage. The twins, sensing his unwavering devotion, began to blossom, their laughter returning stronger than ever. One night, Lily whispered, "Thank you for saving us." Alexander smiled, tears glistening in his eyes. "You saved me too." In that moment, the scars of the past softened, replaced by the promise of a new beginning, one built on a heart of gold. Days turned into weeks, and with each sunrise, the twins grew stronger and more confident. Alexander enrolled Lily and Leo in a new school, filled with kind teachers and new friends. They celebrated small victories, first steps in a dance class, science projects, and bedtime stories without fear. One afternoon, as they watched the sunset together, Alexander felt a deep peace. The dark past was still a part of their story, but the future sparkled with endless possibilities. Together, they were ready to face whatever tomorrow would bring. Though the twins thrived in their new life, shadows of the past sometimes crept in. One afternoon at school, Lily froze during recess, startled by a loud noise, a sudden reminder of the runaway train's roar. Alexander noticed her distress immediately and took extra time comforting her, reassuring her that she was safe. He realized healing wasn't linear. It came with setbacks and challenges, but with patience and love they would face each moment together, ready for new beginnings, even when old fears appeared. One rainy afternoon, Alexander received an unexpected invitation. A local community center was honoring him for his bravery and dedication to the twins. The ceremony was small, but heartfelt. Lily and Leo watched proudly as their guardian accepted the award, his eyes shining with humility. The event reminded Alexander that love and courage touched more lives than he ever imagined. As they left the hall, Lily tugged at his sleeve. "Dad, can we help other kids like us someday?" Alexander smiled warmly. We will, together. Hope blossomed anew, promising a future where their hearts of gold could light the way for others. As the days grew longer and brighter, Alexander began planning a foundation dedicated to children in need, inspired by Lily and Leo's journey. He gathered friends, experts, and advocates to build a place where kids could find safety, love, and opportunities to thrive. Lily and Leo helped him brainstorm ideas, their laughter filling the room with hope and excitement. "This is just the beginning," Alexander said softly. "A promise to you and to every child who needs a second chance." Together, they embraced the future, their hearts forever bound by love and the courage to make a difference. Years later, the foundation stood as a beacon of hope for countless children. Lily and Leo, now thriving young souls, walked hand in hand, with Alexander at the grand opening of a new shelter. The crowd cheered as Alexander spoke, his voice steady and full of emotion. Every child deserves a chance to dream, to feel safe, and to be loved. This place is built on a heart of gold, a heart that refuses to give up. Looking at the twins, he saw not just the children he saved, but the future they all fought for. A future filled with light, love, and endless possibilities. Their journey had begun with a runaway train, but it ended with a love that could move mountains. Alexander's success brought admiration and envy. Late one evening, a mysterious stranger appeared at the doorstep of his mansion, clutching old documents hinting at a scandal buried deep in Alexander's past business dealings. Whispers of betrayal and corruption threatened to tear down the foundation and tarnish the family's hard-won peace. Haunted by memories and determined to protect what he'd built, Alexander prepared to face this new threat head-on. Just when the threat seemed overwhelming, an unexpected visitor arrived. Ethan, a former business rival known for his ruthless tactics, now seeking redemption, he offered Alexander an alliance against their common enemy. Suspicious but desperate, Alexander cautiously accepted, realizing that sometimes the strongest help comes from the most unlikely places. Together, they began, strategizing to protect the foundation and the twins' future. While exploring the attic, Lily and Leo stumbled upon a dusty box filled with old letters, photographs, and diaries belonging to their mother. The siblings pored over the fragile memories, uncovering secrets about their family's struggles and sacrifices that deepened their understanding of their roots. This discovery sparked new questions and a stronger connection to their heritage, giving them renewed courage to face the future. A sudden crisis hit the foundation when funding was unexpectedly frozen due to a legal challenge from a powerful adversary. Alexander's team faced infighting and doubt, but through honest conversations and shared determination, they rallied together. This moment tested their loyalty and dedication, but ultimately strengthened the foundation's mission and their bonds. Digging deeper, Alexander uncovered evidence of a coordinated sabotage effort to cripple the foundation's reputation and operations. Enemies lurked in the shadows, old foes who refused to let go. Determined to protect the children's future, Alexander launched a counter-investigation, gathering allies and securing new partnerships to fortify the foundation. At a glamorous gala celebrating the foundation's milestones, disaster struck. A sudden fire alarm sent guests into panic. Alexander took charge, guiding staff and children to safety with calm authority. His quick decisions saved lives that night, reinforcing the strength of his leadership and the importance of the community they'd built. The twins became active volunteers in community healing projects, working alongside other children to rebuild playgrounds and gardens. Through these acts of kindness, Lily and Leo found purpose beyond their own pain. Their laughter and teamwork inspired everyone around them, creating ripples of hope throughout the neighborhood. The mysterious figure threatening Alexander's world was unmasked as a disgruntled former partner, motivated by greed and revenge. The confrontation was intense, words sharp, accusations flying, but Alexander's integrity and evidence won the day. Though scars remained, truth prevailed, allowing healing and a fresh start. Alexander faced a wrenching choice: protect his reputation by conceding to blackmail, or risk everything by exposing the truth and possibly losing the foundation. His heart and mind clashed, but love for the twins and belief in justice gave him courage. He chose transparency, ready to accept whatever consequences came, knowing some battles are worth fighting no matter the cost. In the aftermath, Alexander's bravery inspired renewed support. The foundation flourished, Lily and Leo thrived in an environment of love and security, and the legacy of hope continued. Their journey from tragedy to triumph proved that with a heart of gold, even the darkest challenges could be overcome. Together they embraced a future filled with endless possibility and unwavering love. The years that followed were a testament to the power of resilience and the unbreakable bonds of family. Alexander stood on the balcony of the newly completed Children's Center, the warm glow of the setting sun casting golden hues across the bustling courtyard below. Lily and Leo, now teenagers, laughed and played with the other children, their faces radiant with joy, a far cry from the frightened twins he had once found on that fateful day beside the runaway train. The foundation they had built together was more than just bricks and mortar. It was a sanctuary, a place where children who had known hardship could find safety, comfort, and hope. Every smile in the courtyard was a living reminder that love, no matter how battered or tested, could heal the deepest wounds. Alexander's journey had been fraught with challenges. The shadows from his past had threatened to consume him, but he had faced them head-on, armed with truth and an unyielding heart. The betrayal, the threats, the moments of doubt, they had all shaped him, but none had broken him. He remembered the countless sleepless nights, the moments when despair whispered lies in his ear, and the times when he feared he might fail the twins who depended on him so completely. Yet in those darkest hours, it was their innocent trust, their growing strength that pushed him forward. Lily, now standing beside him, squeezed his hand gently. "Dad," she said softly, "thank you for never giving up on us." Leo nodded, his eyes shining with gratitude and hope. "Because of you, we have a future," Alexander smiled, a profound sense of peace washing over him. "It was never about me," he replied. "It was always about you two, and all the children out there who deserve a chance to dream." As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with brilliant shades of orange and pink, Alexander looked to the future, not as a billionaire weighed down by fortune, but as a man who had found his true wealth in love and purpose. He knew that life would continue to bring challenges, but with hearts full of gold and hands joined in unity, there was no storm they couldn't weather. In that moment, surrounded by laughter and light, Alexander realized that the true meaning of his journey wasn't the rescue or the struggle. It was the legacy of love that would endure long after the echoes of the runaway train had faded.